So this is my truck, 2001 Chevy Silverado. As you can tell, it looks like it's 23 years old, but the good news is, it runs as good as the day I got it, so why get a new truck? So join me as I take it from this to this for just $125 of paint and clear coat. So here's what my truck looked like right after I got it. It was May of 2003, 2-year-old truck, but basically brand new. Plus it had all the upgrades that I was wanting to add anyway. A grill guard, the Nerf step bars, dual exhaust pipes, everything already included on it. I found it on Auto Trader and it was in Round Rock, Texas. My dad just happened to be working in Austin for a few days and went by, saw it, said it was a great truck. So I flew out there, we picked it up and drove it home. So I had my dream truck and I've kept it for 23 years, and honestly, I can't imagine parting with it right now. One, it's still my dream truck, I love it so much, but two, it runs great and I only drive it about 22 miles a day. So why spend the money on a new truck? But it looks pretty rough, so we need to do some work to make it look a little bit better. Probably should have started this process about 5 years ago when the clear coat started to peel on the hood and the roof. But I let it go. Now it's at the point where the paint's oxidized, some of it's faded down to a whole new color, and even bare metal's exposed in a few places. That toolbox there, it used to be all black, but as you can see now, that needs to be painted too, and the rest of the bed's just kind of a disaster. It's been scratched over the years with who knows what. Now if you catch it at the right angle, it still has a little bit of glory from its former years, as you see here, but then you see the other side and it's not the case. While I was working on this, the first thing I did was interior lights. Look at that upgrade. It went from your factory bulbs to all LED. Big difference. I also installed this Moosun cold air intake. Pretty neat and fun install to do. I have a video of me and my son installing it, linked below in the comments. Check it out. The first real decision I had to make with this project was this plastic trim. Do I tape it off and just leave it as is? Do I try painting it? Is it even worth it? Nope. Now here's a fun piece of history I found. This trim was made on November 6, 2000. The next decision I had to make was about these step bars. I've always liked them and the black provides a good contrast to the gray. My goal was just to take them off, sand them down, and repaint them. Mother Nature had other plans on that. They were rusted through in several spots. Honestly, I was surprised they would still support as well as they did. Here's the underside of the passenger side. Look at all that rust, and if you catch the light just right, there's a huge dent in it. And the truck's 23 years old, so who knows what I could have possibly done to cause that dent. So the grill guard had to come off. Honestly, it needed to be painted. There was some rust in a few places, but more importantly, I didn't want to have to mask the whole thing off while I painted the rest of the truck. Here's the first shot of the truck without the grill guard, without the trim, and without the step bars. It looks like a completely different truck, or as some might say, Daddy's truck looks naked! My chrome tip dual exhausts, well, at least they were chrome tips at one point in time. So, time for a good cleaning. So what I did is take some glass cleaner and some steel wool and a whole lot of elbow grease and patience. Honestly, they turned out looking pretty good. Now, the first painting part of this project I did was this lower bumper. That used to be black, or at least a super dark gray, and as you can see now, it's just not. But I just got a rattle can of black paint off the shelf in the garage and started painting. I know it's not the best quality of a job and maybe not even going to last super long, but look at the improvement that it did to the overall lower bumper. Next up was restoring this grill guard back to its former days. So I sanded it down, primed it, and then started painting. Just grabbed some black paint and put several coats on it. Had a few runs that I had to wet sand out along the way, but overall it turned out pretty good. Although I must say, I've never painted anything with as many nooks and crannies as this thing. Wasn't my favorite thing to do. These old Chevy emblems, I had every intention of keeping them on there, but they used to look a lot better than they do right there, so off they went. Time to start taking apart the front of the truck. So there's the grill. I'm going to come back to that in a little bit. Also taking off the headlights and then really removing the whole front end of that truck. Like I said earlier, the toolbox needed a fresh coat of paint, so I went ahead and took that out. And this mat, well, it's been in there since the summer of 2003, so I wanted to do something different with the bed of the truck, so I took it out as well. Have you ever wondered what 21 years of junk looks like underneath this? Well, there's some acorns and other stuff for you to look at. Time to bring the big guns in for a good cleaning. And let's just say this is a good time to have help around. Taking off these original Z71 decals was probably the saddest thing I had to do for the entire project. So this is what's left. Actually, it's not much that's left, but we got everything ready to go. Washed it one last time to get the surface real nice and clean, ready to be sanded. Sanding down the rest of the clear coat. That was a fun day, said nobody ever, but a necessary step that needed to be done, and we did it. As you can see here, there are a few spots that got sanded a little too much and some bare metals exposed, but before it was time to paint, we did put some primer on those spots, and good to go. So here's what my grill originally looked like, and for the longest time I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with it, but once I decided, I sanded the chrome down, also sanded the bow tie emblem down, then threw a few coats of primer on it, and ready to paint the rest of it. I wanted the bow tie emblem and the grill to be the gray to match the rest of the truck, so I had to tape off everything else and paint that part gray, and then black out the rest. This honestly ended up being my favorite part of the entire truck. The gray emblem with the gray grill and black out everything else just made everything pop and look great. Before painting, the metal had to be cleaned, so nothing like scrubbing an entire truck down with a jug of acetone. My whole mindset during this truck restore was to do everything as cheap as possible, and for the longest time I thought I would actually use a roller to paint this thing, but decided it would be probably best to spray it on, so I hit up the Harbor Freight and got the cheapest spray gun they had. Now, a problem, if you want to call it a problem, but I had never used one of these spray guns before, so before I paint a truck, I thought I would at least try it out with some water and spray the bricks a little bit. If you've been wondering what type of paint I used for this project, well, there it is. Rustoleum Protective Enamel, the color Gloss Smoke Gray. Mixed it with some acetone to thin it out, ready to start painting. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind since we're at this part of the video. If you can't tell, the video is sped up quite a bit. I'm not that fast of a painter. Another thing, I don't necessarily know what I'm doing. I watched some videos about this, but I know my form is not great. I know there's things that I could do to improve this. But remember the overall goal of this project. You saw what the truck looked like to begin with. Clear coat was peeling, paint was faded, it just looked awful. I wanted to protect the metal again and make it look a little bit better. Does it look perfect? Absolutely not. But you can see here, it's going to start looking better very, very quickly. After 3 coats of paint, next up was a clear coat. I wanted to use a 2K clear coat that would protect from the UV rays long term, so I ended up finding this Finish One product off of Amazon. There's no video of me actually putting this on because it was smelly, sticky, even with the respirator on, was not the most pleasant process. But we still got it on, and here's the first shot after the clear coat, taking all the paper off and really starting to see what it's going to look like. One thing you'll notice in this picture that the tailgate is actually still attached. In the next few clips, it won't be there. I just really messed up the clear coat on the tailgate. It did not look good and I could not keep it the way it was. So I took the tailgate off, sanded everything down, and just started over. Here's what the old brake light, cargo light looked like. Honestly not in bad shape, but perfect time for an upgrade to a black casing and LED lights. And while we're on the topic of upgrades, just as well upgrade those taillights as well. Went back and forth between a smoke lens or a clear lens, so I decided to go with these. It's a black casing with a clear lens. Ended up being a great look. The black contrast is great with the gray paint. Let's start putting that front back together. And like I said, that right there is my favorite part of this whole upgrade. Also, when your headlights are 20 plus years old and you have the cheapest possible Walmart bulbs in there, you really can't see that great when you're driving down the highway at night. So time to upgrade those as well. I also put in some new LED bulbs, and man, these things just look great. Any vehicle that has any black plastic trim that's been sitting out in the sun for a while is going to start to fade and look pretty rough. So how do I make this look better? Well, I found this stuff, Flood Penetrol. You just clean it down, wipe it with this pretty good, and it honestly turns out pretty nice. About a month later, and this still looks as good as it does here in this video. Here I am putting the grill guard back on. Honestly, this was a pretty tough decision. Once I saw the grill painted the way it was, I really liked the way it looked, but I also couldn't imagine my truck without the grill guard, so we went ahead and put it back on. Now right here are my old fog lights. Now it's been 10, maybe even 15 years since these things actually worked, so just as well get that fixed too. Now I mentioned earlier I messed up the clear coat on the tailgate, so sanded that down, put some more paint on, clear coat again, turned out much better the second time around. So backtracking a little bit, this is what the tailgate latch has looked like for the last 10 years. It actually doesn't work properly. I had to manually pull that thing to open it up. And if you've ever noticed this model of Chevrolet Silverado, about half of the trucks out there are missing this outer piece. So because I'm cheap and I could still get the tailgate open, I just left it alone. Imagine my surprise when I found this thing on Amazon for $13. 10 years, and I could have had it fixed for $13. Yep. Also a super easy fix to snap together the new tailgate, put the outer piece back on, and done. Also put the trim piece back on the top, and we're ready to put that tailgate back on the truck. And that's how you open a tailgate. Almost forgot how. And that's a 23-year-old key fob that still has the original batteries and still works. But go ahead and replace it while we're at it. I really appreciate y'all joining me in this journey of my truck transformation. Still have a few things to do. Got to put the bed liner in. Toolbox needs to be painted. I have some decals and Silverado emblems that I'm still wanting to put on, but I'm not quite sure. I really like this look that it has right here. May end up being a job for another day, but for now, I'm tired.